What's up, crew? Welcome back to Libertalia Game Supply. Today we're going to take a look at my Fire King Dogmatika deck profile. Now, I posted a combo video up a couple of days ago using this deck, and I didn't post a list because the list wasn't really finished. I had posted a couple of lists in the video prior to that, like a week before. Figured if you really wanted to see something, and there was something in there. But nonetheless, got asked for a list like 6 times, so here's a profile. I have cleaned it up a little bit. It's just supposed to be streamlined as much as possible. Ponyx, turn 1, that's all we're looking for, and so that's how I built it. Now, before we get into this, I'll just let you know that the extra deck I have here is not ideal. It's not exactly how I would want to play the extra deck, and so I make note of what cards I would rather have in and what I would take out. So you have that information there. However, for now, until I get a little bit of extra cash in my pockets, you know, holidays are coming up and that shit gets expensive, I'm just going to have to play it with these budget options that really aren't that good. So keep that note in the back of your head. Make the decisions you can make based on what you have access to. Now let's get this thing started. Alright, first off, we've got 2 of the Sacred Garunix, your new main boss monster. This is the only Fire King that doesn't have an effect when it gets popped, but its on-summon effect is more than enough to make up for that. So if it's in your hand or graveyard when something gets destroyed, if it gets added into your hand within the chain that something gets destroyed, or if it's already in your graveyard when something gets destroyed, it can summon itself. When it gets summoned, it can pop a fire tri-type monster from hand, field, or deck. Deck is usually what you're going to go for because then you have selection of your entire monster lineup, more or less. And all the other Fire Kings have effects that trigger. When it does that pop effect, it also gains attack equal to half the attack of the monster that you popped with it. So usually this guy is sitting above 3k and triggering another Fire King's effect whenever it gets summoned, and it's a free summon from hand or graveyard pretty much every single turn. Then we got 3 copies of Fire King High Avatar Kirin. This is the other half of Garunix as far as being able to set up on your first turn a way to board wipe on your opponent's turn with Eternity, or I guess on your own turn you can make any rank 8 that you might want to. This one also has an effect to summon itself. It can pop another fire monster in your hand or on the field, and then quick effect summon itself during either main phase. And then if it were to be destroyed from anywhere, so Garunix could trigger this from the deck, or Island can trigger it from hand or field or anything like that, you could then special summon a Fire King out of your graveyard or hand and then pop a card on the field. So that card that you pop could be opponent's, so removal, or your own to trigger effects. So another card that has a ton of different uses that can fit into the deck really well. For the level 4s, I'm playing triple copies of Arvada and then just the 1 Barong. You could play the Rangbali as well. I'm not, just because its effect to negate spell or traps, similarly to how the Arvada negates monster effects, seems a little bit more situational. I could see an argument for trying to fit it back in here, and I might at some point do the same, especially because Barong and Rangbali both can special summon themselves when something gets popped, giving you access to a little like rank 4 engine type deal here. But for now, I think just this lineup is fine. Like I mentioned, the Arvada, when it's on the field, it can quick effect negate a monster effect by destroying another fire monster in your hand or on the field. Rangbali does that with spells and traps. And then if it gets popped, it's able to special summon a Fire King out of your graveyard and then destroy it during the end phase. So you could pop this yourself in order to get one of your 8s back, in order to make a rank 8 play or push for OTK. You could put a Barong or a Ponyx back, and then when that gets destroyed in the end phase, on the next standby phase, you would get that follow-up effect. And then Barong is a pretty important part of getting through your deck and getting your combo pieces in hand. When it gets destroyed in the following standby phase out of the graveyard, it's able to search a Fire King from your deck and add it to your hand. So ideally, turn 1, you're going to be, Ponyx into your full combo, popping this with the Garunix, and then on your next standby phase, the Ponyx will go back to your hand, and then the Barong will search the Kirin, and that sets you up for the board wipe play. And then speaking of Ponyx, we got to play 3. The deck pretty much revolves around figuring out how to get a Ponyx effect off turn 1 so that you can set up your board for the board wipe. And then if you're able to do that uninterrupted, you pretty much can board wipe an OTK after that fairly consistently. Obviously, there are different types of hand traps and back row you might have to play through, but Ponyx has 2 effects. On summon, it searches a Fire King spell or trap. Currently, there are no really good Fire King traps, so we don't search those ever. For the spells, there are a few. So you have Sanctuary, you have Skyburn, and you have Circle are the 3 that I'm playing. Though realistically, you could probably cut the Circle and just play 2 Skyburn, because it's just it's like a searchable Raigeki / Heavy Storm. It's a very good card. But your ideal play turn 1 is to summon this, search the Sanctuary, and then go off from there. And then it can do that every time it gets summoned. So if you were to want to get to like a circle or a Skyburn at some other point while it was in your graveyard. You could Arvada it back, get that search, you know, anything like that. And then during the standby phase after it got destroyed, if it's still in your graveyard, you can add it back to your hand. So always leaves you with a material for like Kieran to summon itself, always gives you something to pop with Island if you want the search, and then it always puts itself back. So excellent card for Fire Kings. And then for the Dogmatika stuff, we're just playing the two, Fleur-de-Lis and Maximus. The Nadir Servant engine is centered around Maximus's effect to send stuff from the extra deck to the graveyard in order to generate the Ponix play turn 1. The Fleur-de-Lis is just an extension of that little play. So Maximus can summon itself from the hand by banishing a extra deck monster out of your graveyard. So ideally you're going to Nadir Servant, send Garura, get your draw, then banish the Garura to special the Maximus. Because Garura is a wing beast, if you send Shirag, it can search the Ponix. So that's how that would work. But in the extra deck, we're playing a few different monsters that get an effect when they get sent to the graveyard. And so you're just kind of playing around with how those different effects can interact with the hand you opened. The Fleur-de-Lis should, in this instance, just because I don't have a Bucephalus right now, should probably be an Ecclesia, but I don't think that's the way to go. I would play the Ecclesia just because it would allow you to search the Nadir Servant to get this to your hand. It's also 1500 attack, meaning if you were to draw the Maximus, you would be able to still use your Nadir Servant to search the Ecclesia and then still set up your graveyard for the Maximus to get to the Ponix. Though, like I said, that's not the route I think you should go. I think the Fleur-de-Lis is much better. You can search it off of Titaniclad, or if you were to open this with Nadir Servant, you still need to set up that graveyard. So you just send the Bucephalus that I don't currently have to search the Fleur-de-Lis instead, and then you do the combo exactly the same way from there. This also gives you almost an additional hand trap that is searchable. The deck searches hand traps fairly well, actually, just off of with this card in particular, and so it just gives you that additional monster effect negate. This can get you to DD Crow, Sarvis, anything like that, so great little package there. And then for hand traps, we're playing triple Ash, double Droll, double Veiler, 1 Crow, and 1 Saravis. So these are all in there because they're good hand traps. The Droll in particular is in there because this deck dives really hard to Droll, so I wanted to add in that crossout designator and needed this as a target, and so you might as well just play 2 copies because it's a really good hand trap. These are both search targets off of the Maximus combo. If you were to open the Ponix, you can get to the Crow, and then you can just get to the Saravis anytime you do the Maximus play if you want that, or you can choose something else if you want the Fleur-de-Lis instead. This will protect yourself from targeting effects, so pretty nice for passing your board because you wouldn't be able to get, like, I guess Veilered is only on your own turn, but you wouldn't be able to get like Impermed or compulsed or I don't know, something like that. But good to negate some targeting effects to protect your little board wipe setup. For spells, we got triple Sanctuary and 2 Island. We'll cover them both at once here because they're kind of all the same card. Sanctuary is what you want to search off of your Ponix. The Sanctuary on activation will just put a Fire King Island on the field, which is a big part of how the engine runs. And then if your opponent were to special summon a monster, you could activate this effect, immediately overlay them to make a rank 8 or I suppose rank 4 fire monster. So pretty much always going to be Eternity. There aren't really any other 8s or 4s that are fire that you would want to use this effect for. So this is just setting up your board wipe. They'll have to play around it. They'll have to try to destroy it. Skyburn can protect it, so you have that little something or other there that you can work around with. But you need that to set up the board wipe. The Fire King Island helps with consistency, so it has 2 effects while it's on the field. Number 1, you can destroy a monster in your hand or on the field to then search a Fire King monster and add it to your hand. So this can pop like anything and then search a Garunix, and then that Garunix effect to summon itself would activate because it was searched in the chain that the pop happened in. So essentially it's free special summon of Garunix. Or if you control no monsters, you can just special summon a Fire Wing Beast monster from your hand. So another free special summon of Garunix if you draw it with Island and you don't have a way to set up your other plays. You still can put that Garunix on board. For the other Fire King cards, we're playing 1 Skyburn and 1 Circle. Like I mentioned earlier, the Skyburn could be doubled up on and you could cut this, but I like this a lot just to kind of like cycle through your graveyard a little bit and get a couple extra effects in there. So what Circle does is it's a quick play so that you can do it on your opponent's turn if you want to trigger an effect or like switch out something in the graveyard, but you pop a fire monster on your side of the field and then you target a fire in your graveyard and special summon it. So it essentially replaces. So what that could be is, if like you had to end on an Arvada or a Ponix or something, you could pop that to get that effect and then put like a Garunix or a Kieran or something else on the board that's a little bit bigger or that gives you some other type of advantage that the other smaller monsters don't quite give you. So I like it a lot for that reason. And then Skyburn also is nuts, also a quick play spell. So when you activate it, you target Fire King monsters you control and cards your opponent controls in equal numbers. So if it's 1 of each or 2 of each, however many, as long as you have that many Fire Kings, you can pop that many of your opponents and then hopefully trigger all of your Fire King effects. So right there, you're usually plussing off of those pops. So like if you pop Eternity with materials, you get your monsters back. If you pop Arvada, you get the summon. If you pop the Ponix, you get the Ponix back the next turn, so on and so on. And then you get to clear a board out. So Eternity is going to clear all the front row, the monsters, and then if you were to hit the back row with the Skyburn, you can kind of clear out a whole board and still set up an OTK right there. It also can banish itself out of the graveyard in order to prevent something from being destroyed, your Fire Kings from being destroyed, and so that can also set you up for like just preserving your board or protecting a certain monster setup or whatever. So very good card. For our consistency stuff, we got Triple Nadir Servant. You have to play it just to get to that Maximus play to get you to your Ponix every turn. I got Double Prosperity in here, same concept. We just really want to see Ponix turn 1 every single time as consistently as possible, and so this is all just to get you there, as well as the 1-for-1, just summon it right out of the deck. So that's why all that's in there. And then we got 1 Called by the Grave and 1 Crossout Designator. Like I said, hand traps, particularly Droll, will ruin this deck because of how much searching it does. It can just end a turn right there in its tracks, and so I wanted a little something extra. Maybe I'll even try to fit in another Designator just for that reason, plus any other hand traps, Called by is good for. We're playing a good array of them ourselves, so the Crossout can be good for things outside of Droll as well. And then we're playing the Double Imperm because it's a good card. Now for the extra deck, I'm going to warn you, I'm missing a few of the cards that really put the extra deck over the top, and so I had to make do with what I had for now until I can pick up some of the other stuff. Some of it's a little bit pricier, so I got 2 Eternity in here. I would probably take 1 out. I don't know yet. There's no way to really like loop it back into the extra deck that I've come across so far. So essentially it's 1 board wipe and then you got to try to win from there. It becomes a grind game, which the deck does fine, and so you probably can get away with that. So if I put this down to 1, would end up being like a Typhon or a Zeus or something. I'm also playing the 1 Ding Dong. This thing, it fits in the deck really, really well. On summon, you get that removal, and then it can protect itself from being destroyed or from anything from being destroyed, and so it can preserve your board a little bit. So I like that a lot. For the links, I've got the 1 Heat Soul. It's a quick effect draw, and it's got a little removal effect on it. The 1 Unicorn, because I don't have an SP. The 1 IP, because the Unicorn needs a friend. The 1 Sunlight Wolf, because it's really good in this deck. It generates advantage by getting stuff back out of your graveyard, and it's a really easy summon. The 1 Almirage, because you would need it with the IP to make the Decode Talker Heat Soul. Ideally, this is something else, as well as, I'll just show the other 2 we got in here. Doolittle and Hita. I don't really like these. This is all right. I don't like these. They're just in here because I don't have like a Relinquished Anima or, like I said, an SP or something along those lines. An Access Code Talker would fit in here nice. I just don't have them at the moment. So that's what I'm looking at for the link lineup as far as just stuff that I have. Like I said, fit in the better stuff if you have it. And then our 1 last link monster, I have the Shirag. This is never going to get summoned. It's just to send off of Maximus in order to search the Ponix. We've got the 1 Arclight to send off of the Maximus to search for the Sarvis. We've got the 1 Garura to send off of the Nadir to search the Maximus to get the draw. We've got the 1 Elder Entity Ents to send off of the Maximus to get a pop. And we've got the 1 Titaniclad to send off of the Maximus to search the Fleur de Lis. And like I had said earlier, I would probably try to fit a Bucephalus in here. So maybe we would cut these 2 for a Bucephalus and a Zeus, and then cut the second copy of the Eternity for a Typhon, and that would really line us up nice the way I like it. I also like having the array, so like if we assume that's a Bucephalus, I like having the array of monsters to send, because what it means is, depending on your opening hand, we do play the Prosperities, and so if you draw the combo, pick which ones you want to use in the Maximus combo, and then use the others as banish material for Prosperity, so they're not even really wasted slots at that point, because they were summons you weren't going to use anyway. And so I do like the way that all kind of synergizes, at least in my mind. All right, and that'll wrap it up for today. Let me know what you think of this deck list down below. If there are things you would change, things you would add, other things I didn't mention about the extra deck that you think would be worth mentioning, leave all that down below. We can have a conversation about it. I'm really excited about playing this deck. It feels fun. It feels kind of old school. Maximus is awesome. It's just fun to play. Just a different kind of little play style there. Happy deck building. I will see you guys in the next one. Have a good one. Goodbye.